Hey, welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's great to have you with us again.
It really is.
We are diving back into the fantastic world of Cole Porter today.
Yes. Picking up where we left off, in a way. We did Anything Goes last time.
Exactly. And believe me, there's definitely more Porter to explore after this one, too.
Oh, for sure. His catalog is just incredible. So today we're looking at a show that's, well, maybe a bit different, a little edgier for its time, perhaps.
You're talking about Can-Can.
I am. Can-Can.
Yes. Instantly takes you to 1890s Paris, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That whole lively, maybe slightly scandalous bohemian scene.
That's the one. And to really get into it, we've been digging into our source material.
Which is fantastic, by the way. Gives us a great look at how the show was created, the themes, the production side, and its legacy.
Right. So our mission today really is to pull out the key insights from this source. We want to understand what made Can-Can such a significant show, a success, even if the critics weren't all raving immediately.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Where does our source say this all started? Who had the initial idea?
Well, according to our source, it actually started with Abe Burrows.
Oh, right, Guys and Dolls, Abe Burrows. Big name.
Exactly. He'd had these huge hits, and he pictured the show set in, the Montmartre district of Paris back in the 1890s.
Okay.
But what's interesting, the source points out, is he saw Montmartre not just as like a fun backdrop for the dance.
More symbolic.
Yeah, exactly. A symbol of bohemian spirit, artistic freedom, a kind of defiant.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
Montmartre in the Belle Époque.
Yeah.
You immediately think of Toulouse-Lautrec, the Moulin Rouge,
The Law Level.
all of that.
Yeah.
It was absolutely a center for art and, let's say, more liberal attitudes.
Uh-huh.
And our source really highlights how that setting must have felt. Well, quite different compared to the social climate in 1950s America when the show actually came out.
That contrast is key, definitely. So Burroughs takes this concept to Cole Porter. This is around 1952.
Okay, so Porter's coming off the success of Kiss Me, Kate.
Creatively strong, yes. But our source also makes sure to remind us he was still dealing with some pretty significant health problems. Chronic pain.
Right, the writing accident aftermath.
Exactly. But the chance to work with Burroughs and tackle a story with this potential for satire, a bit of risqué humor, it clearly appealed to him.
It's genuinely incredible to think about him composing such, well, vibrant and witty music during a time of such physical struggle. Does the source give us any insight into his process then?
It does mention he worked really closely with his musical secretary, Albert Sermet, sometimes at odd hours, apparently.
Wow.
The picture you get from the material is one of real resilience. And the score itself, it's mostly new stuff, but our source also points out he interpolated an older hit.
Which one?
You Do Something to Me.
Oh, classic. And his lyrics for Can-Can. Our source says they really carry that signature Porter style, right?
Yeah.
That sophistication, the clever wordplay, the slightly world-weary romance.
Absolutely. You hear it in songs like It's All Right With Me. That sophisticated, almost contradictory feeling.
Such a masterclass in that. And then the sheer joy of C'est magnifique.
They really nail that Parisian atmosphere he wanted. And, being Porter, the perfectionist, the source says he was cutting songs, rewriting lyrics right through the previews.
Really? Based on audience reactions.
Yeah, seems like it. A very iterative process trying to get it just perfect.
So after all that work, it finally opens. Schubert Theater, Broadway, May 1953.
That's right. Abe Burrows directed it himself. Michael Kidd did the choreography.
And the leads were Lilo, a French star, and Peter Cookson. But our source says the real buzz, the breakout star, was someone relatively unknown at the time.
Gwen Verdon, playing Claudine.
Gwen Verdon. This was her big moment, wasn't it?
Her absolute launch pad. Our source really emphasizes this. Her athleticism, her comic timing, just her charisma. It was undeniable.
And that brings us right back to Michael Kidd's choreography, which you mentioned.
Yes, Kidd's work. The source highlights this as absolutely crucial to the show's success.
Okay, so what was special about it? How does the material describe his approach?
Well, the main thing our source stresses is that his choreography wasn't just, pretty dances or spectacle just for show.
Okay.
It was about physical comedy. It was driven by the characters. It actually, told the story through movement.
Instead of just being dance breaks.
Exactly. Rather than just decorative interludes. The source points out this was actually quite a departure from the more classical ballet styles often seen in musicals then.
Wow. So it made Can-Can kind of a surprising precursor to shows like West Side Story, maybe, where the dance is so integral.
That's exactly the connection the source makes. He wasn't just adding dances, he was using dance as narrative, which feels incredibly modern for 53.
It really does. And the staging sounds
Mhm.
like it was pretty spectacular, too.
Oh, quite lavish. The material says Joe Mielsener's sets really evoked those gaslit Parisian spots, the cabarets, and the costumes had that Toulouse-Lautrec feel.
Designed to just transport the audience.
Totally. A visual feast.
Opening night.
Yeah.
I imagine the atmosphere must have been pretty charged.
Uh-huh. Our source suggests Porter himself was quite nervous. Apparently he felt the show's success might really ride on the power of the dance and that spectacle.
And the reviews, as you said, were a bit mixed.
Definitely mixed, according to our source.
Mhm.
You had someone like Brooks Atkinson at the time saying, yeah, the book's a bit thin, but the dancing, sensational.
Right.
And Walter Kerr specifically highlighted Gwen Verdon, called her the true star. Porter himself apparently said Verdon made my songs dance.
High praise. The material also hints there might have been some friction backstage. During rehearsals?
Yeah, a little bit. Kids' choreography was notoriously demanding.
Uh,
And Lilo, the lead, being a French star, reportedly sometimes found American stage timing conventions a bit challenging.
okay.
But the key thing the source emphasizes is that despite maybe some bumps, none of that really seemed to derail the final product or show up on stage.
Got it. Now, something else our source really digs into is the timing. The early 1950s.
Yes, the socio-political context. It's fascinating.
Yeah. Because you have this era of, well, conservatism. McCarthyism is starting to bubble up.
Right. And then you have Can Can, a story about a rather moralistic judge trying to shut down this scandalous as dance, suppress this lively dance hall.
It feels like a pretty cheeky commentary, doesn't it?
Mm.
Even if indirect. A little jab at censorship and that kind of repression.
That's exactly how the source frames it. Presenting those themes through this historical French lens probably let audiences laugh at that kind of prudishness from a safer distance, you know?
Yeah, makes sense. And the source even speculates a bit, thinking about Porter himself as a closeted gay man in that era. Maybe he found a kind of personal resonance or even catharsis in the show's celebration of pleasure, art, and, a little rebellion.
It's a really interesting layer, and it raises a question the source seems to mull over. How much of the show's huge popularity was just the spectacle, the dance, Verdon, versus the subtler critique?
Did it challenge things head on?
The material suggests probably not head-on, but by using humor and style and this Parisian setting to gently poke fun at puritanical attitudes, maybe it tapped into a kind of cultural desire for a little bit of that defiance.
Hinting at changes to come later, like the sexual revolution.
Perhaps. It certainly resonated. While some critics might have shrugged at the book, audiences absolutely loved it. The source is clear. It sold out for months.
Propelled by kids' choreography and Verdon's star power.
Undeniably. And the music really cut through. Songs like It's All Right With Me.
And of course, I Love Paris.
Huge hits, became standards almost instantly. Recorded by everybody, Sinatra, Ella Fitzgerald.
So it seems like over time, looking back as our source discusses people, scholars, really started to appreciate how integrated the choreography was, how narrative it was.
And maybe how surprisingly bold those underlying themes actually were for 1953.
Yeah. Should we maybe walk through a couple of those key moments the source highlights, just to get a feel for the structure?
Good idea. So Act I kicks off in Pistache's Cafe, introduces the dancers with that satirical number, Maidens Typical of France.
Right. Then we meet the judge, Aristide. He's complaining about artists and chaos in Never, Never Be an Artist.
His whole mission is to clean up Montmartre. But then, he meets Pistache, the cafe owner, and things get complicated.
He's drawn to her, and she responds with her own philosophy, right? Live and let live.
Which the material frames as this bold statement of freedom, independence, and then you get that charming, slightly over-the-top romance starting with C'est magnifique.
Love that one. The act builds, doesn't it, with Come Along With Me and then that interpolated song.
You do something to me, highlighting that conflict, that attraction between Pistache and Aristide.
Okay, then Act 2. This is where we get the big one.
I love Paris, yes. And the source points this out as a really interesting moment for Porter. It's pure, heartfelt sincerity.
Which is quite different from his usual sophisticated wit, isn't it?
Very different. And it became one of his most beloved songs ever.
We also get some comedy with Allez-vous-en.
And that sophisticated introspection of It's All Right With Me, the jazz standard we mentioned.
Right.
The source describes the climax happening in a courtroom scene. The dancers are defending themselves, their dance.
And it all leads to a big reprise of the can-can number itself.
Exactly. And the source suggests that in that moment, the dance becomes more than just a dance. It's like a symbol of defiance, of joy. It basically turns the judge's ruling into an affirmation of life.
It really sounds like, as our source explains it, every song, every dance number was designed to do something, reveal character, move the plot.
Kids' choreography wasn't just window dressing, it was like the narrative engine.
And Porter's lyrics throughout,
Yeah.
just packed with his usual cleverness.
Oh, absolutely. Signature wordplay. C'est magnifique, for instance. The source details how it uses that exaggerated franglais.
That mix of French and English.
Yeah, to playfully mock romantic cliches. It's very clever.
And I love Paris, as we said, that rare, sincere moment. The source notes the lyrics are deliberately simpler, balancing nostalgia and longing without the usual witty twists.
Which gives it that unique power, I think.
Totally agree. Then you have It's All Right With Me. Pure, urban, cool, emotional complexity, exploring the compromises in love.
And songs like Live and Let Live or Never, Never Be an Artist use those cheeky rhymes and contrasts, as the source points out, to poke fun at self-righteousness, at bureaucracy.
All steeped in Paris, French references.
Absolutely. The material also gives us a peek into those rehearsals we mentioned, Michael Kidd's style.
Yeah.
Famously demanding.
Pushing the dancers, including Verdon, really hard physically.
Yeah. Verdon herself, according to our source, later said this was the show that really made her a, quote, serious performer. It forged her.
Wow. And A. Burroughs, the director.
Known for being collaborative, but also apparently had a sharp wit if things weren't clipping.
And that detail about Lilo maybe struggling with the English timing.
Mhm.
Sounds like there were challenges.
For sure, but they clearly managed it. The team pulled through.
Did they make changes during the tryouts? Does the source mention that?
It does. Songs were cut. Our source mentions one ballad Porter was supposedly quite fond of, Who Said Gay Paris.
Why cut it?
Felt it slowed things down, apparently, disrupted the bright energy. They also thought about putting in Let's Do It, Let's Fall in Love, but decided against it.
Interesting choices. The source also mentions the film version, right, from 1960.
It does. Shirley MacLaine, Frank Sinatra. But apparently it got criticized for being, well, too cleaned up, sanitized compared to the stage show.
Lost some of that edge.
Yeah. And it mixed in a bunch of other Porter songs, so it felt maybe less like an adaptation and more like a Porter medley movie.
Okay. And revival since then? Have there been many?
Sporadic is how the source puts it. There was one in 1981 with Chita Rivera. Mixed reviews praised the dancing, but felt the book seemed dated. And another version in 2007 tried revising the book. It seems the show stays popular regionally, often getting reinvented with a real focus on the dance.
Makes sense. Let's just revisit two of those huge songs the source really dissects. I Love Paris, probably the most famous song from the show.
That wistful homage, yeah. The source gives this lovely detail, says, Porter wrote it late one night, in one sitting, feeling unusually sort of subdued.
And deliberately avoided his usual clever wordplay.
Exactly, aiming for pure emotion. And you can really hear that, can't you?
Oh, absolutely. That simplicity is its strength.
Yeah.
The melody, the lyrics. They capture that longing, that appreciation, without any tricks.
It really gives the show an important emotional anchor amidst all the high kicks and spectacle, and it's become a true global standard.
Definitely. And then the title song, Can Can. It's a classic Porter list song, right? But how does it compare to, say, You're the Top from Anything Goes, according to our source?
That's a great comparison. The source suggests Can Can is maybe more anarchic, more physical than some of his other list songs.
How so?
Well, You're the Top is very urbane, intellectual, listing sophisticated things. Let's do it. It's full of clever innuendo animal metaphors. But Can Can, the source argues, really thrives on just escalating absurdity, listing totally outlandish people and things that can supposedly do the dance Persian ladies, tomcats.
So the humor is in the sheer silliness and the momentum.
Exactly. The farce of it, that cascade of references, nationalities, artists, animals, it mirrors the dance's own wild energy. It sounds like it was just designed as a pure showstopper, maximum theatrical impact, kinetic energy.
Okay, so wrapping this all up, when we look back at Can Can through the lens of our source, what's the big picture? What does it all mean?
Well, while maybe it doesn't always get the same critical acclaim as, say, Kiss Me Kate, or it isn't quite the cultural touchstone Anything Goes became...
It was still clearly a really significant success for Porter, especially later in his career.
Definitely. It really showed his resilience, didn't it? Blending that classic wit we expect with these surprisingly sincere moments, especially I Love Paris.
And it used that Parisian setting, as we discussed, to offer that commentary, however subtle, on 1950s social norms and censorship.
And its impact on musical theater history is undeniable. You've got Michael Kidd's narrative choreography, which was groundbreaking.
And launching Gwen Verdon An absolute legend.
A true icon.
So even if some critics found the book a bit flimsy,
The show gave us these incredible, enduring songs. I love Paris. It's all right with me. They became standards, real standards.
so understanding Can definitely adds another layer, doesn't it, to
Yeah.
appreciating Porter's sheer range as a composer and lyricist.
And it shows you how musicals were evolving then, how spectacle, dance, and maybe some underlying themes could all come together, create something both really popular and ultimately pretty influential.
Absolutely. And here's maybe a final thought to leave you, the listener, with something our source really brought home for me.
Okay.
We talked about Porter's health struggles. He was composing this vibrant, joyful music, creating enduring songs like I Love Paris, all while dealing with immense physical pain from his leg injury. He went through numerous surgeries, which eventually, sadly, led to amputation. The show itself, with all its energy and wit, and even that touch of sincerity, it really stands as kind of an emblem of his personal resilience, his ability to find and refine joy and elegance,
Yeah.
even when facing just profound personal adversity.
Yeah, that's a really powerful way to think about the artist behind the art, isn't it?
It really struck me. Well, we hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the world of Can.
It was great fun exploring it.
And like we said, we are absolutely not done with Cole Porter's incredible work yet, so definitely stay tuned for more explorations into his canon.
Looking forward to it.